5 years leading up to the 2007 presidential elections, Kenya's tourism saw a 50% jump in arrivals, and that year a record 1.8 million tourists visited the country, generating around $1 billion. But in the aftermath of the post-election violence swiftly followed by the global financial crisis, arrivals plummeted by 35%.
In Kenya, whenever our tourism industry has been doing well, for example, in the first 10 years after independence, or for example, in the 3 years up until the elections recently, tourism was doing very, very well, and the economy was also doing very, very well. When tourism declines or stagnates, then the economy also goes down.
Kenya's tourism sector used to be the country's #1 forex earner before the global financial crisis, as well as the post-election violence in 2008. But with aggressive marketing as well as the upcoming FIFA World Cup, this sector is expected to move back up to the #1 spot.
Even though the credit crunch had a big impact on us in the latter part of last year, as it did for other countries, we did begin to see quite a good recovery. One reason was that we had already started doing special offers and had been looking at how we could market our way out of the problems we'd had earlier. And so we were probably quite well placed when the market was beginning to look for added value offers and special deals. We were already offering those. And so I think that in terms of price and value, Kenya stood out.
For sub-Saharan Africa's third biggest airline, Kenya Airways, the country's economic might in the region would prove to be its saving grace. Most people doing business in East Africa tend to make Kenya their entry point.
Now, we as Kenya Airways fortunately haven't been 100% dependent on tourism. I mean, we are diversified quite a bit in terms of our own business. If you look at the transfer traffic that goes through Jomo Kenyatta Airport handled by us is about 70% of our total business. And a lot of the people are businessmen and women, but no doubt, I mean, anything that affects tourism does also affect us, so it did affect us. But the moment we're starting to see numbers going up.
In East Africa, Kenyan companies dominate business. And for Titus Naikuni, a tall man with what seems like not much regard for glass ceilings, an aggressive strategy in a climate where there is much consolidation in the airline industry is the way to go.
I am for it myself, for mergers. But if you look at most of the airlines in Africa, they're owned by governments. Now, we are a private entity ourselves. Government has 23%. So there's more flexibility in private entities getting together than government entities getting together. I think there's a lot of ego at the moment within the industry such that you can't even think of mergers. But to me, that's the way forward, because if you don't have mergers, what's going to happen is you're going to have the European carriers, American carriers merging, and you're going to have big corporations trying to get into Africa. And for us to try and compete with them, it's going to be difficult. Just imagine a merger of Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Airways. What would you create? I know it's a very sensitive subject, but so be it. I'm saying it.
But while a merger between these airlines might be a bit of a pie in the sky right now, for homegrown Equity Bank, going against critics and proving that money can be made from Kenya's unbanked has paid off. Equity is now the 4th biggest company by market cap on the Nairobi Stock Exchange and holds over half of all bank accounts in the country. Through a major acquisition of Uganda Microfinance in 2008, Equity expanded its unbanked empire to become the 3rd largest branch network in Uganda. While the model worked for Uganda, South Sudan was a whole different ballgame.
Starting off with Uganda, we wanted to experience and explore the possibility of expanding this model using an acquisition style. We were successful to the extent that we took an institution with 80,000 bank accounts, and within a year we had grown that number to over 300,000. And we had been able to scale up outreach by increasing the branch network to 45, the 2nd biggest branch network in Uganda. We thought we were successful to customize this because of similarity in economic situation, the poverty level, the economic activities, the social style of the people at the middle and bottom of the pyramid is similar within the region. When we went to Sudan, the story was very different. There was no acquisition that could be made in Sudan, so it was a greenfield. But the experience there was very, very different in the sense that the elite and even the government was not fully banked. The civil servants were not banked, so we couldn't start at the bottom of the pyramid where the opinion leaders and shapers had not been banked. So we started by sensitizing the opinion shapers to be banked, so that we can then use them as agents to advocate for the power.
Kenya's economic dominance has been a thorn in the side of negotiators in the East African community trying to institute free flow of goods across borders and create a common monetary area. While this goal might seem closer to reality now, the concerns are still that this integration is all happening too soon for it to be implemented effectively on a grassroots level, and that Kenyan goods will flood the market, flushing out locally produced products.
First of all, is to ensure that this process does not just remain in the minds and plans of the elites. It has to go down up to the people themselves, so that we don't have a situation where the elites say one word into the press and sign protocols for the sake of media publicity, but when it comes to protecting their own interests, they instruct the officers at the border or the police officers who man roadblocks to do the opposite.
While some may view Kenya's presence with weariness, a hardline attitude is taken by Kenyans themselves when foreign products enter their own market. Kenyans are proud, and SAB Miller found out just how proud. In the late 1990s, the world's largest producer of alcoholic drinks, Diageo, which owns East African breweries, went head-to-head with global brewing giant SAB Miller in what was called the beer war. But Castle left a bad taste in the mouths of Kenyans so used to Tusker, and where every glug was accompanied with a statement, "My country, my beer." In 2002, SAB Miller closed its Castle Lager brewery.
I've been around Southern Africa, and if you go to Botswana, you go to all these places, South African brands pretty much can be dropped right in, that because I think there's a greater community and an identity amongst the Southern Africans. When you come up here to East Africa, I think there is a more an East African identity. You can't just drop your brand in here. And a key example is Sab Miller, who took on EABL. I think that is changing in a way. What I've noticed lately with the MoMA Awards and advertising, there's much more of a sense of an Africanness, right? I meet people who no longer tell me I'm Kenyan, they feel more African. So I think that trend is going to change. There's becoming more homogeneity amongst us all, which is something I'm excited about. But having said that, historically, with the Kenyan market, you've got to be careful. You can't just dump your stuff in here. It's not going to work.
After the break, we explore just how East Africa's largest mobile company, Safaricom, has managed to make big profits from bite-sized products. We also find out some of the challenges facing Kenya's tea and coffee producers, and how Kenya's capital markets are getting a serious spring cleaning, and why your calls could soon be outsourced to Kenya.